Hello, everybody, and welcome to an incredible conversation that we have today with somebody very special to us and to the world. And this is another conversation around what it really takes and what it really means to grow and create a coaching business. And we love having real talk with coaches. And honestly, it doesn't get more real than you, Rebecca. And what I'd like to very quickly do is just share a little bit about how we experience you as a client and as a member of our school. Oh, I should say schools, actually, because you're in both. You're in the one that we've got right now and the one launching in April. And then hand over the reins to you so that the guys can hear, the listeners can hear from you. And one of the things that actually I've just shared with you, Rebecca, or we shared with you in our coaching conversation, was that one of the reasons we wanted to have you on this call is because the way that you navigate your life and still create the success that you create it's not only inspiring, it's an absolute gift to the world to hear and see, because it's a very special thing. And we've seen you, since we've known you, we've seen you navigating divorce, moving home. We've seen you navigating growing a business and all the messiness that brings, as well as being a phenomenal mother to 3 kids and an incredible coach, and the loss of a hamster, which I know was a real knife turn for you. And yet here we are having this conversation and showing the world how you've created what you've created, inclusive of all of those things. So it's such a pleasure to be able to introduce you to everybody and say, Rebecca, what do you want people to know about you?
Wow. It's a good job I had a practice cry before we came on. Yeah, I mean, firstly, thank you for inviting me to have this conversation and sharing, because I think it is really, it's really important for me to share the changes that I see and which you guys help me see when sometimes I don't slow down enough to see them. And I've had the pleasure of working with you guys on my own and then in the school, both of which have been amazing and will continue into next year's school as well, which is fantastic. And when you introduce me and share my story, there's a little bit of me looking over my shoulder going, who are they talking about? Because I find it hard to acknowledge that story and acknowledge all of those things. And I know you guys want a warts and all, share about what this work is about. And it's bloody hard at times, because it's so powerful and so transformational and so incredible, and yet so hard sometimes to stay there. And the way that you guys approach and the idea that you're bringing into to the coaching, the loving service, can be hard to kind of accept because that's not the habitual approach I've had to life, business, or anything really. So, there's been a lot of resistance along the journey as well. And there has been an incredible amount of forgiveness for that resistance. There's been an incredible amount of compassion for that resistance, and an incredible amount of then actually acknowledging that from that resistance has come great change in ways that I might not acknowledge on a regular basis, and something that you guys are encouraging me to practice, and I have practiced, and I do practice. And I knew when I came into the school, when we first started talking about the school, because I was working with you guys on my own at that stage, was that I knew there was so much more I wanted to learn about being a coach. I am a very powerful and impactful coach, and I think I always have been. That's a gift that I have. And there's more. And there's more in how I am being around that will impact that. And that was something that you guys started to open my eyes to when we started talking about the school, was that whole idea of being what I wanted to be in my life and in my business, and how that would create the ease, flow and wealth that I wanted to create in my life that wasn't necessarily there, or didn't feel like it was there at the time. And I have navigated some really tough life changes over the last, almost 2 years that we've been working together, and many years before that, and have found what I needed as I've gone along to help support me with that. And you guys in the school have been very much part of that journey. And yeah, I can now, well, I'm seeing the results of it, right? I'm seeing the benefits in my business, in my life, with my clients, with my kids. How I navigate, as you say, how I navigate. I don't think I'd have even used those words before. I wouldn't have thought to say this is how I navigate. And what I am seeing more and more is then how I create from there. And that's in the present, but I also think there's been a real acknowledgement and acceptance that that's something that I've always done. I've always been a powerful creator. I've always created from where I am. I just never really recognized it or saw it. So that's been a massive shift for me. And I think just...
I don't want to interrupt, Rebecca. So if you're in flow, you keep going.
That's fine.
I want to paint a picture of just taking us back to the beginning, really. And just draw out of you, like, what were you up against? Like the Rebecca back then, if you can even remember what she was like. Because I can remember, so I can help you out here. But there's things that I think, like if we can really draw those out of you, like what you were up against, what your habits were, what your tendencies were to do when you were in proposal conversations, when you were thinking about, letting go of maybe some of this work that doesn't feel good to me and align to me anymore, and the challenges that you had in seeing that you could create your business that felt more easeful. I don't even know if we made up that word, Rebecca, or if it's a word.
I think we did.
Yeah, so can you paint a picture of what it was like then, so that you really relate, because you're so relatable. There's a humanness about you that I really want people to experience.
Yeah, so what was I up against? I was up against, 30 odd years of it being hard. That's how it was. That's how you made a success of things, was it had to be hard. So anything that wasn't hard didn't seem real. I was up against a lot of fear. I was a single mum bringing up 3 children, and there was a lot of fear attached to what that meant and how that manifested itself in my drive to do things. So there was a real scarcity mindset around money and what I had to do in my business. So, how I approached things was, coming from a sense of lack. So there was, a lot of neediness. There was a lot of, grabbiness. I had to win things. I had to get it. I had to do it. There's a lot of hads in there. And it felt like there was a lot of either or going on. There was a lot of, if I do this, I can't have ease and flow and fun and lightness and in my life. So there was a lot of if and buts, whereas now there's a lot more ands. I can do this. And there was, I would say the biggest thing was fear. A lot of my decisions were coming from fear and lack and what if, that again, those stories that play out. And a lot of me being wrong. I think that's something that we've worked on all the way through, is that if whatever was going on, there was something wrong with me that I needed to change or fix or do more or be more to make it right again. A lot of people pleasing, a lot of fixing, a lot of if something isn't going how, if life throws in a curveball, there must be something wrong with me. And that didn't drive, okay, let's look at that, let's get curious about it, let's be kind and compassionate. That drove, right, do more. That drove a lot of self-doubt, a lot of go so far as to say hate, but certainly there was a very strong lack of love for self. And some of the work I've done before I met you guys, and then what's happened, what we've continued doing is around actually, self-love, self-forgiveness, self-compassion, and self celebration, I guess, as well, of actually being able to see, what I have created. I created my coaching business pretty much overnight because I decided that's what I wanted to do. But yet I still made that wrong. It wasn't the right kind of coaching. It wasn't the kind of clients I wanted to work with. It wasn't true coaching. And yet, at that time, it was my only source of income, has been my only source of income for the last 5 years. And yet I still made it wrong. And that made it heavy and that made it difficult. So learning to let go of that sense of it being right or wrong and just being with it and accepting and acknowledging what I have done and growing from there has been, really, really incredible. Yeah, I wouldn't recognize her today, I don't think.
Yeah.
Certainly wouldn't want to hang out with her very much either. And
could you still love her, Rebecca?
I could,
because it was innocence.
No, I could still love her. And actually, do you know what? I would hang out with her because I'd want to coach her, right? All of this that I've learned myself, I bring to my coaching with my clients, and that's something else that you guys have helped me recognize, is that all this messiness that I'm going through, and what I'm navigating, what I'm learning, what I'm looking at, what I'm growing from, is all part of what I bring. And bringing all of that, and I'm seeing that in the clients that I'm creating, in the conversations that we're having, in the transformations that they're creating. That's all coming in. Whereas again, that Rebecca would have felt like she had to hide all of that, had to keep all of that separate.
What's been your experience of transformation, Rebecca? Because at the beginning there, you're like sharing around, like the word that comes to me is just trapped, like keeping yourself trapped in like, this is hard, and then I beat myself up, and then I have to do more, which feels harder. And there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of blame and judgment on yourselves. And just, I can see how that would look like, I don't know the way out here because I'm just in this cycle. And for me, that it's the word trap that comes up. And I know what you came to us with was like, flipping hell, I just love to feel freedom.
Yeah.
So what was your experience? Was it like there was a click moment? Was there just I've had enough moment and I'm now committing to something else and I don't care how uncomfortable it is, I'm going to do the work? Was it a gradual shift where it's like, oh, hang on, that feels different, I didn't even realize that feels different? Like, what was your experience of transformation?
The honest truth is all of those things. There have been real, eureka moments of just, wow, that's different, and really like almost physically felt a shift. That I talk about my heart thump. I know when something lands because I get that, boom, that heart boom. And so there's been moments like that, and then there's just been the really subtle changes that really take time to, and something you guys always talk to me about is slowing down and acknowledging it, is that sometimes I miss because they are so subtle and yet so significant, which comes back to everything you talk about how we are being, and again, this is about changing how we look at things, because that Rebecca from all that time ago would have been very much a kind of, what am I doing that's different? What am I, what's tangibly different here? And like you say, that felt hard and it felt trapped and it felt difficult to navigate, to this other thing of just how I'm being and how different that feels. And that's more subtle, because it's not that big bang or that, eureka moment. It's just, oh, okay, this just feels different. And I think that there were a couple of those moments that I had along the way where, it would almost be a eureka moment, but in a very subtle way. And often it was that in itself felt uncomfortable, because it was like, hang on, that feels, it feels, I can't think of the right word. It's not familiar. It feels, it feels unfamiliar because I felt something else for so long. And it's the awareness, and you guys are really good at bringing us back to that and pointing us back to that, of going, that's because it's different now, but that can feel, and that some of that resistance can come up because it feels unfamiliar. And that, as a learn for myself, has been really powerful for me with the work that I do with my clients as well, is, recognizing those moments. I think we all think of transformation as some sort of big, big bang moment, that suddenly your life goes from this to this in one moment, in one turn. And I think my learn, and the learn that I'm sharing with my clients, is that, yes, sometimes it does happen like that, but sometimes it is more subtle and more gradual. And then you look and you see that it's not just that you've taken a different route, but that you are somewhere totally different, and that you are being somebody totally different. And that, to me, is my experience of transformation, is those moments, whether they come in a bang or whether they come in those subtle, quieter moments, is just seeing how everything has shifted.
Can you share more about that? Because I have two questions. I'm curious to know, like, what's different on the outside? What's different on the outside now? And what you said you wanted when you came into the school, like, have you realized that? Is it still work in progress? So that's one question. And the other question that I want to make sure we get in there is, what's been the most surprising, unexpected change, where it wasn't even your consciousness of like, I want to work on this, that you have now gifted yourself as a result of being willing to do the work that was in front of you?
What was the most surprising? That question is difficult, because where I am now, nothing seems surprising, if that makes sense, because everything that you point me towards is now kind of like, oh, okay. So that openness has changed how surprising and willing I am to go to places that would have been surprising. Does that make sense? So it's almost like the element of, oh, I wouldn't have thought to go there, has gone a little bit, because everywhere seems more accessible now. I think one of the most surprising things for me, and when I look back now, it doesn't seem surprising, but I think if I'd gone back then, was going back to that, just how hard I was on myself, and my willingness to keep going there. Because something you mentioned there is about it being a work in progress, and it is. It's I've circled back round to the same place many, many times, and that's okay. Something Sam always, it's like your catchphrase, isn't it? And that's okay, because and that's something else that I guess that being hard on myself wouldn't allow me to do. It's like, no, I've been there, I've done that, come on, got that one ticked, move on. And yet that willingness to come back to it and have another look and see what's going on there, and why is that harder to let go than anything else, or why is that something that comes up again and again. So I think that probably is surprising. But nothing, there is a sense of, it's surprising isn't the word that I'd use, but there's another word that I can't quite find that's more exciting than surprising. Now, when it's like before, if something had come up, it'd be like, ooh, like a bit of a shock. Whereas now it's like a rare gem that you find that you kind of want to go towards. So I think that's probably the biggest shift, and a good experience of transformation is where you actually start get excited about what you find rather than, trying to either being shocked by it or resisting it. I don't know if that answers your question.
It totally answers my question. I'm going to try and articulate what I think I'm hearing, right? So it's like you've gone from this place, and you can switch out words if they're not helpful, but you've gone from this place of like have some expectations of what's possible, and I want to work on that. And now you've moved into this place of curiosity, expansiveness, openness. It's almost like I'm hearing on entry there was a ceiling, and it's like, let's work towards what I think we can achieve here. And now there's a burst through the ceiling into this like, oh my gosh, like what's next if I just keep doing what I'm doing and working on what I'm working on? What am I going to see?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's really well articulated. It is that, okay, what else is possible from here? Yeah, absolutely. And I think your other question around, what does the outside look like? Well, I have created a more easeful, flowing, and wealthy practice. I have, without there's still work to do, but without giving more and more and more and more and more, right? There is still some work to do around allowing and the flow. I think that will all, that is still present, and I'm okay with that because we just keep coming back to it. But yeah, I've created a very successful, thriving coaching practice that supports the life that I am creating and will. Yes, we have gone through some significant changes, in terms of divorce and moving house and things, and I've created a business that will support what I want to do next, and is continuing to grow, and is exciting, and that is very much an integral part of who I am and how I'm being. And I'm really proud. I'm really proud of what I've created. And not just from a wealth perspective, but actually from what it means, what it stands for what it, for what people see in it. And I know the ripple effects of what I've created in the world, and that brings me great pleasure. I know you guys, your vision for how we elevate the coaching profession, and how we bring something different to it. I feel I'm a part of that, and I've done, all that has always been done with real love for what I do and what I put out in the world, and that has always, and this was a conscious decision even before I met you guys and started working with the school, but it's been, kind of compounded by that, is that I wanted that to be fun. I wanted it to be me. I wanted it to not be a carefully designed marketing plan and a funnel growth model, because that's not what I want to create in the world. And there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not making that wrong for anyone else, but I knew that's not what I wanted to do. And that's, creating that in the world for me has been as important as what I do, if you like. And that was done very consciously, which again then was something that I could acknowledge in myself. Not only have I navigated this, but actually I consciously chose to create something here. You know, and collaboration and connection and creativity are, you know, some of my core values, and I have brought those into how I am, what I do, and yeah, I'm really, really proud of that.
That is music to my ears, Rebecca, that you're finishing on an acknowledgement for yourself. It's beautiful to hear. I want to add to it if I can, because I so see everything that you're sharing there. It's like you model and demonstrate beautifully. When I think of you, and I know Sam did the introduction, when I think of you, I think of someone who really is a huge cheerleader for others, a massive ambassador for others. And you are always the first one to put your hand up and say, yes, you can do it, or cheer for somebody else, or encourage them and support them. You just give so much love to others, and it's a joy to be in a community with you. And we see that in the school. You are a real leader in this school. So I want to share that. And the other thing that just occurred to me that I really want to acknowledge you for is, I remember that I was having a conversation around, you thought that you wanted to be the good girl in the school, right? Like, I want to be the good girl, and that's going to mean showing up like this. And there was a certain image that the good girl would want to live into. And what we really encouraged you to do, and I so acknowledge you for doing this, is switching out the idea of the good girl, because it was different to what a good client, if we want to put a label on it, actually operates like. And what you have really done is you have become a great client, because you show up with honesty, with openness, with fully yourself. If we challenge you, you'll be like, fuck off. You know, like we'll get the real Rebecca. And that is so incredible for a coach to work with, because we get to see, like, where do we need to go? Where do we need to hold the space? What do we need to explore next? So the idea of being a good client is like, I need to know stuff. I need to pretend that I've got this already, and we can't circle back round. Your work that you've done on yourself to allow yourself to show up the way you show up is phenomenal.
Before we wrap up, Rebecca,
Mm-hmm.
can you share just a few words to the coaches listening? The cool, one of the really cool things about listening to you talk is that there's a theme of willingness and commitment running through your life and your work. And without those things, it's very hard to get anywhere. So I'd love for you just to share your ideas and your thoughts around that to the world of coaches. What would you say? What would you say, having grown your business to where it is, what would you say to coaches who are growing their business?
I think it's I think the words that you chose there, willingness and commitment, are so key. And again, you know, coming back to this being hard on myself, I never really saw before that I always had that willingness and commitment, right, to anything that I did. And it has always served me very well, and continues to serve me very well as I continue to grow and learn. If you can surround yourself with people who share that willingness and commitment, and the biggest thing for me was to be in a community where you were fully loved and supported in that as you are. Because anyone who's having a look at this and is a coach or is looking to become a coach will have something within them that has driven them to this conversation, to watching this. And I had to, at that stage, because I was where I was then, I had to drop all the kind of logical stuff that will go on in your head around this, and really just tune into my heart thump again, when I feel this, when I hear this, when I think about this, what do I really feel? And for me, that's how I access that willingness and commitment. You know, that's why I'm the fierce mother that I am. That's why I'm the fierce friend that I am. That's why, you know, have this tag of fiercely loving, because when I get that feeling, then the willingness and commitment is just a natural part of it. It's not forced. It's not hard. Coming back to what we said, and that's one of the big transformations I realize is actually when it's from here, it's not hard. That's not to say it's not hard work sometimes, but it's not hard. It's it comes with that willingness, it comes with that openness, it comes with that excitement, it comes with that moving towards something rather than away from something. So anyone who's listening, tune into that and go with the hell yes. Lisa loves my hell yeses. Hell yes that comes from there, and ignore all the all the other stuff that comes up, because that's all I've ever done, is I've really tried always to tune into that hell yes.
If I wasn't afraid to break it, I'd drop my mic, Rebecca. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for making the time for this conversation, to be here with us and for the listeners.
Well, thank you, because you guys, the loving service that you guys so beautifully model for all of us in the school is exceptional. And I don't think if you haven't experienced it, it's very hard to explain it. But when you've experienced it, it will be a hell yes for every school you run for me from now on. So, but that's hard to share with people. So you're going to have to trust me, anyone watching or listening, because that's what you get when you join the school.
Thank you, Rebecca. It means a lot. It really does.
If anyone listening wants to get in touch with you, Rebecca, how can they do that?
Oh, you can find me all over social media, complimentcoaching.com, and on all the social media platforms as Compliment Coaching. I'm quite present and visible. You'll find me.
Thank you.